I'm Lisa Stone, and you are listening to Season 8 of Parenting Aces. Welcome to Season 8, bonus episode 9 of the Parenting Aces podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and I have been trying for several weeks to pin down Noah Rubin and have him join us here on the podcast. I'm thrilled that we were able to get him between practice sessions out in Indian Wells as he gets ready for qualies next week. And Noah, as some of you may already know, has started a new venture on Instagram called Behind the Racquet. I am just enthralled with his posts and what he's able to accomplish so far with that. And so this week you can hear from Noah himself about why he started the project, what he's hoping to accomplish, and what's in store for the future with Behind the Racquet. As always, if you enjoy this podcast episode, we hope you'll share it with your friends. And as you know, Parenting Aces is donor supported. So if you can, we would very much appreciate you taking a moment, click on the donate button at parentingaces.com. No donation is too small. Thank you. And now sit back and enjoy my conversation with Noah Rubin. Noah Rubin, world traveler, thanks for joining us on the podcast. So happy to have you.
Thank you for having me.
I mean, this has been a long time coming. I think we tried to do this last summer when you were playing in the Atlanta Open, and it just never worked out. And so I'm really thrilled that we've had the opportunity to finally connect. And actually, the timing's perfect because your Behind the Racquet Instagram account has gone viral, as they say.
Yeah, no, it's I would call it a new initiative of mine, but really, I didn't really have any hopes for it. It was just an idea that popped into my head through some help with some friends, and who knew where it was going to be. And obviously it's been about a month now, and it's been really receptive, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here.
Well, one of the things I think is so cool is, as a college player yourself, a former college player, not only have you included fellow former college players in the Behind the Racquet series, but you've also included some folks that bypassed college. And, everybody's got a different story. And I think it's really important for those of us who have kids involved in the sport to hear these stories.
Yeah, I was kind of outspoken in the fact that I always thought for tennis players, leaving school from an early age and not being allowed to really have any more hobbies because it just takes up so much time, that tennis players as a whole were fairly one-dimensional. But I am, even myself, learning that everybody has a story and everybody has a background. There's so much more to each person, and I think from everybody else learning, I'm also learning myself, and it's been really a great situation and experience for me so far.
It's funny. There are some outlets that profile tennis players, but typically they're profiling people like Serena Williams and Roger Federer, not necessarily people like Noah Rubin and Nicole Gibbs and Chris Eubanks. And I think it's really cool that there is now this feature that all of us can look forward to each week or every few days. I mean, there's really not been a set schedule, I don't think, that you're releasing these new stories yet, though I suspect as you get busier with it, you're going to have to get a little bit organized that way. But what made you kind of decide that it was time for all of us to hear these stories?
Yeah, I mean, I'll preface it with saying this is not just an American thing. It's not just a Challenger Tour thing. I'm going to get every player, and I think everybody has a story, even if they are in the limelight to begin with. I think this is a chance to share something that maybe they haven't shared before. And to kind of slide into your question, we as Americans don't truly love the sport of tennis. It is just not. We are probably fifth on the totem pole. I mean, we're rivaling against, soccer and football and basketball and baseball, and we're losing. We are. And I've always had this thought that we need to bring these human interest stories back to the world of tennis, and that's how you bring excitement. I mean, I'm already seeing it with some of my posts that oh, Ernesto Escobedo, I didn't know he had a stutter. My son has a stutter, and now I have another reason to follow Ernesto. I have a reason to be a fan of tennis. Or I used to play high school tennis, and now I kind of stopped. I haven't really followed in a few years, but reading your stories, I have such an interest in just the people playing it, not even the sport. And it's just giving people another route if they don't love the sport, that you can love the people a part of it and then grow to love the sport itself. And it gives you new eyes, new perspective. And I think that's the only way to really bring the sport back to the limelight in tennis. And, we had some of the personalities. We had the Andy Roddick or the John McEnroes, but now I think we really have to show that, everybody in the world has a story, and you can really follow anybody, and there's a billion people, and there's always a story you can relate to, and there's going to be more than one, and there's so much going on. You just have to, fans haven't really had the outlet or the platform to listen to them, and players haven't had the outlet to share them. So I think I'm giving both a happy medium where they can kind of see each other and see each other in a different light, not just forehands and backhands. And I think it's really exciting. It's been extremely receptive.
How come Instagram and not a blog or a podcast or some other form of media to get these stories out? What drew you to Instagram as your platform?
I think, I've gotten very comfortable with Instagram as a whole. I think I know how it works. I think I know what works within it. And, with my sister, being a part of the social media world as well, I think she's another great outlet to use. And she's one that knows the Twitter, Instagram world very well. Just bouncing ideas. I think for our generation, we have this, I would say Instagram is probably at the forefront of popularity right now, with how things can grow and how easily they can spread and go viral. I think Instagram is the platform for it. And I think, where this idea all stems from was Humans of New York. And I mean, I could be wrong. He could have started somewhere else, but where he got a lot of his publicity was from Instagram. Mm-hmm. And I just knew how to use it so well, and I felt so comfortable with it. And it felt like a place where, I could post a picture on Instagram and go directly to Facebook, and it could really spread out from there. And, and I knew how to use the Instagram stories, and it just felt very natural and organic the way it was growing through Instagram. And, podcasts are not easy. And, I wanted something where they didn't have to feel a camera in front of their face, or yes, I am recording them, but it's not the final thing you're hearing. And I think it's a very difficult thing to not have your guard up when, let's say, a camera gets in front of your face, or even a recorder. And I think it's very tough for somebody who's not maybe open about certain very troubled past or family experiences to have then a camera in front of your face, and you go straight guarded and you start answering questions very PC and not really opening up. And I think that's where I found a lot of the issues. And that's where I got to, the way I'm doing it today, and the way, it seems to be successful. And it's been exciting so far.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that to me is so unique about Behind the Racquet is how raw these stories are. And I mean, for those of you listening to this who haven't read any of Noah's Behind the Racquets, you'll know what I mean when you read one. I mean, these players are talking about money issues in their families. They're talking about divorce in their, with their parents. They're talking about terminal illnesses in their families. They're talking about their own learning disabilities, their own mental issues that they're, issues with depression or other things that have, been sort of barriers that they've had to overcome. I mean, these are truly raw stories. And I'm just curious, how did you get people to open up like this?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously in the beginning, you have this idea and it comes to mind, and then you say, well, one, are people going to like it? And two, the biggest concern of mine was I going to offend people? I mean, I was asking truly straight up questions to their face, and for some reason they saw in my eyes that I'm not trying to offend them, that I just wanted to get to the bottom line. I just want to know more about them. And I guess there's something that you can't really replicate. And I think this is the reason why I'm not worried about people doing what I'm doing, is because I'm a tennis player first. I'm a part of their world. And I think they saw that I had no ulterior motive. I was just giving them the platform they needed to share the story. I'm not saying anything else. I'm not doing anything else. I'm not asking for anything besides a picture of them and for them to maybe repost it on their page or Instagram story. So I am literally I am just a name that gives them the platform, and I'm one of them. And I think with that has a sense of trust from the other players, and they see that this isn't for me. This is, once they get through it, and some players aren't as receptive and some players don't want to do it at first, but, for the most part, they see that this is a place where they can share their own story and, and reach a lot of people, reach some fans and get some new fans. I mean, people are getting hundreds of messages, when they post a story and I post a story, and they're getting so much support, and they'll get 40 comments on my picture, and then they'll get their own DMs. And if they post it, I mean, Tasha Victory got over 100 comments, or about 100 comments on her own picture when she posted it. And it's just, there's an overwhelmingness of support for all these players, and it's really exciting, and it really stems from I am just one of them. I mean, yes, of course, I have wild and crazy dreams for this project, just like I have for my life. I mean, that's just how I live. But in reality, it's just a platform for them to share a story. So I think that's why it's grown so organically so far.
And another unique feature is there's no judgment, right? I mean, right. This is somebody's story. And unlike some of the stuff that we read about players getting blasted on Twitter, after a loss or whatever, I mean, so far as I have seen, there's been nothing negative that's come out of this. And maybe I'm missing something, but I hope not.
No, I mean, for the most part, they have been very tough stories that these players have been through. So it's very tough to come up with something negative. But at the same time, it is just their story. There's not much you can say to them unless you're just going to be that one person that comments something, anti-Semitic or racist or blah, blah, blah. But besides that, it is just their story. They are just opening up and sharing a really tough moment. And I think no matter how awful of a person you are, you have your own story. And I think that's almost playing a role in this, that, God, here are some athletes that, I look up to, or they work really hard, or I thought maybe I thought negatively about them in the beginning, or I thought they were really entitled, but here's the story that's telling me differently. And I'm not hearing it from anybody else but the person. It's just their own story. And it's really tough to argue that. So you can hate them all you want, but here's something that they've pushed through and managed to push through and have become a better person for it. And I think that really resonates with everybody just a little bit. So I think that's why it's been so incredible and only positive feedback.
So what you said, you're not asking anything of these athletes, except to maybe repost it on their own accounts. What are you hoping to accomplish with Behind the Racquet?
I think I'm really trying to normalize the stigma around mental health and get people to open up, and especially, I mean, you could say the world, but then I'm going to narrow it down to sport, and then I'm going to narrow it down even, a little bit more to tennis. Such a unique sport and how individual it is. And everybody has this concern that they have to put on this, this tough mental face, and because we're all competing against each other. But at the same time, we're all in it together. And I know that sounds weird because we're all fighting and we all have a ranking, but at the same time, it is just such a tricky sport, and there's so many mental barriers, that you have to break down each and every day. People have no idea. So I think just normalizing that idea a little bit, that here we're all tennis players, open up a little bit, or at least find somewhere in your own life and maybe it motivates them to open up to those people, and just getting the talk going and saying, you know what, it's okay to talk about this stuff. You're not a weaker person for it. And I think, this is a problem, both men's and women's. And I think people have this, they have to put on this tough face, and this will be highlighted. I'll give you a little sneak peek. It will be highlighted in next post, which will be tomorrow, about Bradley Klahn. And, you just have to kind of put on this tough face. And I think I'm trying to normalize that idea and say, you know what, yeah, we're men, women, we're friends, we're competitors, but you know what, we have tough days and we can open up and talk about it and we can get through it together. Because in the end, even if our career is magnificent, we're playing until we're 35. God willing, we have many, many more years after that to be a person and a human being. And this sport can really, really hinder that, really hinder your mental state of mind. And, if you have some people that are just there for you, which hopefully that's what I'm trying to help out, then I think it can really help and aid that process.
Have you had any of the players say they don't want to do it because they don't want to jeopardize their reputation in the locker room? Meaning, they don't want to appear weak and have somebody that they may play next week read about some weakness and then capitalize on that on the court?
I've gotten more people just afraid to truly just open up in general. People that haven't really shared the story before, that didn't know how other people react or didn't really know what it is all about. So, the more players that get to do it, that open up about, really tough moments, I think players will see that it's just a safe place. It's just a platform for you to share your own story. Nobody's judging, nobody cares, that, you had these troubles, we appreciate you for it. And I think it's shown. And, people are definitely more open into it, now that I'm up to about 20 posts, let's say, or whatever it is. And it's really exciting to see people open up about things they haven't. I've had many people hug me and come up to me and say thank you. And I've cried during the conversation, saying they've never shared these stories before. And it's really tough. And it's almost it's a responsibility and obligation for me at this point to share these stories, because now that I know that everybody has one, and I've listened, and I feel like it's a necessity, and I have almost a role in it to be the first person to really take those stories out and put them, a little bit in the spotlight, so people can see, how amazing these athletes are and how much they push through, and to cut us some slack every once in a while. And I think, it's a win-win for everybody, and it's therapy. It's a way to grow your fan base. There's a million things you can take away from it, and it's been a great month for me so far.
So you said you're not putting a camera in their face. How do you record these stories, or are the athletes writing them and submitting them? How does that work?
Yeah, I did a few through writing, and it's not ideal that way, but I have done well through writing, and I'll send them questions, and we'll go back and forth. It just takes a little longer. I'll either record them. Most of them are recorded on my phone in person, some on my phone not in person, because especially with trying to get women highlighted, it's tough with the lack of men's and women's tournaments combined. So that right. I have to really take advantage of over the phone. But yeah, for the most part, I'm doing this in person. Those are obviously the most powerful, because I'm making eye contact with them while they share these heart-wrenching stories. And then after I do it, I sit down either later that day or another day and transcribe them to my computer. I then edit them, and I'm not adding any words, just fixing a little grammar and making it, cutting and pasting certain paragraphs to fit into Instagram, and then sending it to my editing team, which consists of my best friend and my girlfriend. I'll send it to the player, who gives the final okay, and then I post.
Awesome. So, do you find yourself in the role of therapist now too?
No.
Okay.
No, I do not. I find myself in the role of, how do I describe it? I find myself, like I said, kind of just this responsibility, this almost a friend, but more. Like it's a strange way. God, the words aren't coming out, but it's almost this fact that I know they have a story, and I know how tough it is to share, but I know there's an obligation for them and myself. If there's even a hint of them that wants to share it, I know there's an obligation for myself and them to share it, to make other people, to shine a light on their path, and and motivate other players and other people to get through it because they have, and there's so much that goes into it, and it might sound cheesy, and I'm sure I do at certain points, but I think there's definitely a power within it, and I've gotten messages that says, "Thank you so much for this." Like I said, my son had a stutter, and now here's an athlete he can look up to, and he doesn't feel as alone. Like, I mean, those things. God, I mean, like, here's something that I just thought about, a month ago in bed, and now even if I affect just that one kid's life, but I've gotten hundreds of messages, but even if I just affect that one kid's life, that means the world. That's it. That's it right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. And obviously there is a sense of trust between you and the player that you're profiling, because as I said before, these stories are incredibly raw and incredibly personal. And I suspect for a lot of these players, maybe they've never shared these things before with anybody else.
Well, not to give a little too much insight, and I'm sure he would be okay, but Sangren came up to me, basically in tears, saying, "Thank you so much for allowing me to share my story. I never actually shared my story with anyone before, and I needed that." And here's somebody who shared their story about their father dying, and he's looking me in his eyes, sharing that story, and it's heart-wrenching. It hurts. And you can see how sad he was just sharing it. And for him to come up even after sharing something like that, and thanking me. I mean, he's 50 in the world, and he's thanking me for this opportunity. I mean, the fact that this hasn't been done before is almost sad. Like, that's what I feel bad about. That's why I'm working so hard to try to get these stories out, because it should be done.
Right.
So that's why. So when he hugs me and says that, then I'm like, there's so much more to this.
Right. And I mean, it's interesting because I've had this conversation with powers that be in the tennis world, that we have these incredible athletes out there that nobody hears about, that, not only are physically attractive to look at, which, should boost the sport because we're a visual society. That's just how we are. And we're superficial that way. But also that have, like you have exposed, these unbelievable stories to tell. And how do we expect to grow the game of tennis if we don't give people players to root for and to cheer for and to get behind? And that's exactly what
it doesn't. It doesn't grow.
Right.
Sport doesn't grow. And you can say, and I am tremendous fan of Francis Tiafoe. I've known him forever. We're good friends. And it was unbelievably quartered Australian Open. Great. That only goes so far.
Right.
We already forget about it. Obviously, he's going to remember that for the rest of his life. But as a tennis fan, let's say, it's gone. You don't use that platform for something bigger, it's gone. Nobody remembers it. That does nothing. Unless you're really, truly winning slams, then you can make an impact. But if you're not using your platform, which a lot of these guys have, then it's a waste. Nothing's going anywhere. I mean, I'm looking.
Sorry to interrupt you, Noah. We had a little dog barking incident there, but we were talking about the fact that if players don't use the platform to build the fan base, and
right, no, it doesn't grow. And not to call anybody out, because they are really great guys. I could tell you that. But the top Americans, they're just quiet guys. They're not really out in the open making, that many moves and trying to get the word out. And that's their personal preference not to do that. And I get it. That's fine. But then you're almost hindering the sport in a way, because you're 9 in the world, you're 20 in the world, you're whatever you are, and you have the platform to reach millions of people. And your interviews are like, okay, that's fine. That doesn't do anything for me. And that's when it's an issue. And you can have a Francis who's definitely more outspoken. He takes his shirt off. He does the whole thing. And that's cool, and that will definitely bring more awareness to the sport. But I'm talking about on a larger scale. I'm talking about truly affecting people and making them want to watch the sport and making them want to be a part of it and giving them a billion people to look at and say, oh my God, here's three people that I literally went through the same exact experiences during my own life, and the professional athletes, and they're 70 in the world. And oh wait, I'm from New York. I can go watch the US Open. Boom, I'm taking my family. Like, that's how these things work. And that's something that has never been done before. And, not to make fun of more people, but you could go on the Tennis Channel and watch What's in My Bag, and okay, somebody brings out a teddy bear and you're like, oh, that's so cute. Like, it doesn't do anything. It's so superficial, artificial. You can use all these words. It just doesn't do it. Mm-hmm. And I've always, if you've heard me speak before, you can hear from my friends, I've always had this idea of changing the sport and, of course, the world. But that's just cheesy. But I've always had this idea of bringing more to the sport, and obviously that stems from my tennis improving and hopefully building my own platform to grow off of. But there's a lot more to it. I'm doing my best at the moment. So.
No, I think it's great. And I think, one of the things that as a fan that I love so much about the Olympics, for example, is when they dive deep into the athletes and, take you into their homes and take you into their daily training routine and, show you what they look like when they wake up in the morning and come to the breakfast table. I mean, that's how you build fans for any sport. And I think the fact that tennis has been remiss in really telling good stories about all the athletes. And now Tennis Channel does the where they follow the one male and one female through the year. And
yeah.
They're doing that now with Coco Vandeweghe and with Mackie McDonald. And it's great. I mean, it's fun, but the segments are short and
it's fun, and you use the right word, and not to put you on blast, but you use the right word. It's fun. It's good. And you're going to see some tough moments, of course, and could be after a loss, but it's PC.
Yes,
it really
exactly.
That's what it is. And that's what it gets down to. So you watch these and you take it away and you take it with a grain of salt. You're like, oh, that was fun. I saw a little glimpse into Mackie's life, and that's cool. Like, I definitely didn't know that about him, or blah, blah, blah. But in the end, you're not thinking about that. I mean, I have people texting me saying, I couldn't stop thinking about that, and that's a paragraph. It's just a paragraph that's written. There's nothing
exactly.
more. And they're saying, like, I am thinking about this for a week after. I can't. It is such a heartbreaking thing that this guy had to go through it. I had to send him a message. And, like, you're watching these Tennis Channel things. You're like, okay, like, it's fun. And now you have some good stuff, so you don't have to rewind and watch an ATP 500 from 6 years ago. That's great. I mean, I'm happy. and that's really exciting.
Yeah, you and I need to talk a little more off mic.
No, believe me, I'm willing to speak about that on camera. I'm definitely open with that stuff because, I've said it to the people to their face. There's a lot of changes that need to be made. So yes, obviously these things are going in the right direction and they're working hard. They have a lot of people.
Right.
But you're on Tennis Channel, you have to be PC. I guess to a certain point, I guess maybe you can't talk about these things on a daily basis because, even my mom came up to me and was like, oh, I know they're really, they're great that people are, reading these, but they're maybe you put a happy one in. I'm like, Mom, that's not the point. I'm not,
Shocking that Melanie would come up with that.
And she's been great and she's been so supportive. She loves them. It's just, and I get it. They're tough. They're depressing.
They're heavy.
But these are their stories. And I'm quoting Law and Order for God's sakes, but it's just, this is them.
Right.
This is not, putting three walls up between them and a camera. This is who they are. And, Mackie's, in front of a camera doing this thing. And I love Mackie, and he's smiling and he's thinking about a billion things that he's going to say and how he's going to make it sound good for camera. That's just not my project. And that's just not how I want it to go. So, it does get a few more people to watch the Tennis Channel, but you're not getting new lovers of the sport. So.
Well, and that's the thing. I think, one of the things with Tennis Channel is it is geared toward people who are already fans of tennis. I would venture that, they're not creating new fans for the sport, but rather catering to the existing fan base. And what it seems to me that Behind the Racquet is able to achieve, and, like you said, you've done 20 posts. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you are attracting new fans to the sport because people can relate to these stories that maybe had no interest in tennis before. Maybe, maybe they've played once or twice, but they're not really into watching the game. But now all of a sudden they've connected with one or more of these players and are going to seek out their schedule and, where can I go see this person play in person? How can I watch them on TV? How can I follow their career? And all of a sudden you've created new fans. And that's what it's all about. That's what our federations are supposed to be doing and really have had trouble doing in recent years. And I just love that a player has kind of grabbed the bull by the proverbial horns and taken matters into his own hands and said, hey, I'm sick of us not getting the visibility that we deserve. We work hard out here and we deserve to be seen and heard and known and followed. And we deserve for there to be butts and seats when we're playing our matches. And, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's been really great, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
For sure. Let's since you said you're okay talking about this stuff, I'm gonna put you on the hook a little bit. The ITF's World Tennis Tour has gotten a lot of press lately, a lot of visibility in social media. There have been tweets and blog posts and Facebook groups formed and petitions being created as we speak. What are you hearing out there, and what are you experiencing as a player?
A lot of upset people. Yeah, I mean, this is in no way to come off arrogant. I just thankfully don't have to deal with it as much, with where my ranking is at.
Right.
Getting to the nuts and bolts of it a little bit, I've gotten to know a little bit about the process, and there's definitely some room for improvement. He'll take to social media today, and I agree. There's a point where you're not getting into ATPs or Transition Tour you're not getting into challengers off of ATP or ITF ranking. And that's where it falls. Anywhere from, let's say, a 280 to 380 range is where it's a really tough point where you have enough ATPs to kind of sneak into a couple challengers, but not many. And then you're off, you're on the alternate list and there's no qualifying, so you won't get in. And then, you don't really have an ITF ranking because you've grinded so many weeks trying to get these ATP points. And that's where the problem lies. And, there's more than a few problems with tennis now. And I see where they're kind of trying to go with the system. It's definitely a rough draft that I kind of threw in there, though.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, too, what's happened is that there's like what happened when our governing body instituted some new junior comp rules back in 2014. These things get thrown out there and yes, hopefully some changes will be made. But in the meantime, you've got a whole group of people who are unable to make a living right now. And that's not okay.
Right. Yeah. How I see it from my point of view, and I get it, there's always, so they, everybody starts figuring out that there's talks about changing tennis. And once that happens, the people in charge have this pressure to come out with changes because obviously there's so many ways to fix tennis. There's so many problems with tennis that there needs changes. So, towards the end when they were trying to, put these changes into effect, they were trying to figure out that maybe it wasn't the right play and they were, changing minor things right before the deadline kind of thing. And then they kind of threw it out there and that's where it gets tricky. And there's a lot of brains and a lot of smart people that are working their butts off trying to get these changes. And yes, it's going to affect people no matter what. I just don't think they saw this coming, or maybe they didn't see it as big as a problem, but it's a rough draft and hopefully they correct it soon.
Right. And I think, thank goodness for social media because it does give players that are kind of stuck at the challenger level a voice to make themselves heard and, hopefully to drive some change sooner rather than later so that the whole year isn't wasted and, they find themselves starting from ground zero next year when their points completely disappear off of their ranking. I just think it's a big fat mess right now. And, hopefully the ITF will do the right thing and continue to make the changes necessary to keep the opportunities alive. Well, how could they not be, right? How could they not be? My goodness. I mean, you've got everybody from Sports Illustrated to the New York Times to players all around the world, coaches all around the world, tweeting about this and writing articles. And so hopefully it's something that will get fixed quickly, and I'm happy it's not impacting you in a negative way. But one of the things about tennis that I always think about is, every player is one injury away from having a big change in their life, right? And you have gone through periods where you've been out due to injury, and luckily you were able to get yourself back into the rankings and get yourself at the level that you should be playing, the level tournament you should be playing. But not everybody has been that lucky. It's tough out there.
Very, very tough. And it sometimes takes years and years. And, that's I can speak for hours, and I'd rather not about this. I do it all the time. But there are many changes that need to be in place for tennis. Shorter seasons, salaries, more club-ish matches, kind of like
the European system.
Steroids. Yeah, the European system, of course, and those things. There have to be shorter schedules and shorter sets, and there's a lot of things that have to be changed. And I think we're gonna find ourselves that we just have to dive in one day and throw it all at the wall and see if it works, and just see if it works out, and just take the chance. Because right now what we're doing is not okay. It's not making us money. It's not conducive for TV. You can't tell TV, oh yeah, close off 3 hours or 15 hours. We have no idea how long this match is going to go. So, and they're like, okay, no, we're not going to do that. We'll put something else on. And like, I literally see cornhole being played more on ESPN than tennis. So it's like there's a lot of things that need to be changed, and the way we just rip our bodies apart. I mean, that's a season. We have 11-month schedule, and we're playing 2 out of 3 sets, and we're just dying every day. I mean, play to 4 games, have the Grand Slams the same, but, play to 4 games, have, ATP, some of the high-level ATP tournaments, and then have club matches and allow people to really make money. And, the tennis is still going to be there. Like, if you're a good tennis player, you're going to win. And if you're not, you're not. Like, if nothing really changes, and if you don't have ads, and if you have shorter sets, it just means that people get to play harder for every point. That's all that means. You don't have Grand Slams where they're throwing away sets. You don't have sometimes a long 2 out of 3 match and they throw away a couple games. And that's just, you won't have that anymore. So I think there's a lot of changes that can be made. And I think we'll see that in the next 5 to 10 years.
Interesting. As someone who prides himself on foot speed and fitness, you really want to see matches shortened?
It doesn't matter for me. Yes, of course, if I find myself 6-all in a third set, I am banking on myself to win that because I'm just in better shape. But with that being said, each individual point, I feel that. So yes, the sets are shorter. Yes, people can last longer because now the sets are shorter. But, with that being said, in that rally, I can go an extra 5 balls longer. So let's say that guy can go 10 balls. I can usually go 15, but now I can go 20 balls because I know I'm only playing 2 out of 3 sets, no ad, up to 4. So I'm even going a little bit longer. The points are going to look better. I'm still at an advantage. Whatever advantage you have is still going to be an advantage. That's all it is. Okay. I've thought this over. I really truly believe that, yes, your advantages are your advantages. So are disadvantages. And in the end, the best player is going to win. And then, yes, maybe the shorter sets, you're going to have your weird, upset every once in a while. But in the end, it's going to be normal. And it's going to be better for TV. It's going to be better for fans. And, how many times you can get a 7-year-old or 8-year-old who hasn't picked their favorite sport yet to watch a 2 out of 3 set match that goes 5 in the third. He's middle of the second set. He's like, oh, Dad, can we go home now?
Yeah.
So there's changes that need to be made, and hopefully we'll try.
You know what I find interesting? I play a lot of league tennis, and we play 2 out of 3 full sets. Regular scoring. We do play a tiebreaker at 6-all, but we do play out the third set. And I always laugh that you've got all these 50 somethings out there, in the hot, humid weather down in Georgia. But then you look at some of the new shorter formats and think, gosh, these are professional athletes and they can't play as long as I'm playing. But the difference is we're playing one match and then we're playing again in a week.
Right. I mean, you're looking at the new system, and I'm having one day off and 5 matches in a row, and then God willing, I'm hoping I do well, and I hope, it's always the saying, I hope I'm tied for next week. I mean, what? How is that possible? In a professional athlete is saying, I hope I'm tired for my next tournament. That just means I did well enough that I don't have that much rest for the next tournament. I mean, that is something I should never have to deal with again.
Right.
Yeah, you can be tired and you can have a few days off, but like for the most part, I mean, you're finding a tournament. It is a good effort to go back to back having good tournaments. It is a really good effort. That means you're putting in some long hours in the gym, in recovery, making sure your body is sustainable for another week of grinding, and it's not easy to do. So.
Right. No, it's crazy. It's crazy. Well, Noah, what else do you want us to know about Behind the Racquet and what's coming? Do you have another project in the works, or?
I have more things with Behind the Racquet. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be, besides the stupid love of just like making hats and sweatshirts with the new logo, which I just put up yesterday.
Yeah, I love the logo, by the way. I forgot to mention that, but yeah, well done.
Thank you so much. So yeah, make some articles of clothing that I'll be repping around a little bit. But yeah, I have some true visions of galleries and stuff like that to take my love of photography, because the pictures I have on right now are kind of just placeholders. But I would take some real pictures with a camera of mine, post in the gallery, and have some players actually go to the gallery and walk around and talk about their experiences on tour. And, I'll sell these works. And it'll go to charity. And that's kind of where my dreams lie. And I think this is a nearer future than I believe. And I think everything's going very fast. And I'm one to work at a high speed pace. I can really use my connections in the art world, which has been my life, and I'm really excited to see where this all goes.
I mean, I'm envisioning something at the U.S. Open this year.
Hey, who knows? We'll see. We'll see if they can if they allow a New Yorker to step in there.
I think that's a fantastic idea. I just, again, I mean, this whole idea of bringing the players to the people is something that's been missing for a long time, especially in U.S. tennis. I don't know how it's done in other countries, but I feel like here we have done a really poor job of bringing the players to the people. And if Behind the Racquet starts a new trend in that direction, I mean, amen to you, and keep going and keep telling these stories. And I would hope that the players that have done your feature so far are feeling like it was a good move for them, career-wise, personal-wise. But for the players that haven't yet had the opportunity to share their story on Behind the Racquet, if you hear this, please do. We want to get to know you. We want to be able to cheer for you, and we want to understand the obstacles that you've overcome to get where you are. And Noah, I think this is brilliant. I really am a huge fan.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, and I'll let you get back to your training. Good luck. What's your next event?
Indian Wells qualifying in about 5 days from now.
Awesome. Well, I love that tournament. So good luck. Enjoy the desert. There's lots of good eats out there, and lots of fun hikes and things to go do on your quote off time, which I know is kind of a joke, but I hope you'll get to enjoy the desert a little bit.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you so much. To my listeners, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on Parenting Aces. I'm Lisa Stone, and you've been listening to the Parenting Aces podcast. For tennis parents, by a tennis parent. If you like what you've heard, I hope you'll share the podcast with your tennis community. For all the information you need to navigate the junior and college tennis journey, be sure to check out ParentingAces.com.